I'm Julie Zenner along with Dennis Anderson, and here's what's coming up on Almanac North.
Well, for the first time in years, a cruise ship will disembark passengers in Duluth and take on new passengers, giving a nice boost to the local economy.
We'll find out what it's like to live in poverty through an immersive poverty simulation video report.
And we'll find out more about next week's Great Duluth Race, a team-building event sponsored by the Duluth Chamber.
Those stories and voices of the region coming up next on Almanac North. Hello and welcome to Almanac North. Thanks for watching. And Denny, rain is expected this weekend and it's really needed across the region.
Yeah, it truly is. I know a lot of people have outdoor activities planned, but this could be a weekend where we're not going to suffice with all of that and get into the rain mode instead, but we need rain.
All right, well, let's hope for a good soaking. And let's start now with the headlines.
All right, thank you very much, Julie. Well, road construction continues to ramp up in the region with more projects. Pavement milling and chip sealing on 15 miles of Highway 53 begins Monday with north and southbound lane closures near Independence. And milling and paving work began today on Highway 2 at the junction of Highway 33 with lane closures and flagging operations. Motorists are reminded to use caution and to slow down in work zones.
Also beginning Monday, the 27th Avenue West ramp onto southbound I-35 in Duluth will be closed for removal and reconstruction of the ramp. A detour will follow Michigan Street to 40th Avenue West. The closure is expected to remain in place through mid-July.
The Minnesota DNR received a proposal for a nickel mining project in Aiken County this week. The Talon Metals Nickel Project would construct an underground mine and support facilities just north of Tamarack. The DNR will begin review of the project and determine whether enough information has been provided to begin the scoping process.
And Wisconsin Governor Tony Evers signed a new revenue sharing bill into law this week, providing a large boost to local municipalities. Wisconsin Act 12 will provide a 20% increase in shared revenue to local governments across the state. The historic boost was agreed to by the governor and Republican legislative leaders earlier this month.
Well, the Viking cruise line ship Polaris will arrive in Duluth Saturday with more than 300 passengers. But rather than just spending a day touring the area, those passengers will be disembarking the ship at the end of their journey. Later, another 300 plus people will board the vessel to begin their cruise. Now, this cruise ship turnaround will provide a nice boost to the economy. Here with more is Dan Hartman, Executive Director of the Duluth Deck and a member of the Explore Minnesota Tourism Council. Welcome, Dan. Good to see you tonight. What does the cruise industry do for the city of Duluth in terms, Dan, of the local economy?
Actually, a lot more than I think people think. There's the obvious thing where folks come in. Well, right now for the turnaround is a much bigger deal than the stop because people may have been staying here for a couple nights in a hotel getting ready to go on the ship. And then when the ship comes and they get on the boat, there's a whole new group that gets off the boat, and they typically will stay in a hotel because they want to see and visit Duluth.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, and what I kind of like is they're a little bit more free, and so a lot of times they do their own scheduling, where the stops are highly scheduled. You go to the depot, you got a whole list of stuff. But the stuff that people don't think about is a lot of times when these ships come into the harbor, they have to buy meals and food and gas, and I can't remember the total amount, but the cost of the prime rib they bought one time from local in town was in the thousands of dollars.
Oh my, oh my.
And so there's all these little economic benefits that you don't think about that these cruise ships need for the rest of their cruise.
They're spending money here, aren't they?
They're spending real money here.
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
Now, are you surprised at how quickly Duluth turned into a turnaround spot? Because when cruising came back here, people were kind of looking at it as, maybe on the 5-year horizon.
Absolutely. This was actually a shock to a lot of us local leaders when Viking came back about a year and a half ago and said, you know what? We're already booking turnarounds, and they're selling.
Mm-hmm. So what is it about Duluth that made it appealing for them?
And I would say it's not only is it Duluth, but it's the Great Lakes.
Sure.
That to the customer, it feels like a familiar place. And for a lot of folks who live on the East Coast or the West Coast, they've always heard about the Midwest, but they've never really been to it. And so it feels like a familiar but exciting and mysterious place. Because like cities like Duluth, they've never really knew much about.
Dan, what role does the deck have in coordinating some of the activities?
Yeah, so we're kind of become the cruising port in some weird way. And we actually just had a staff member who came back from Quebec City working with our other Midwest folks to kind of sell the Great Lakes. And the deck's role is we kind of keep our usual hospitality, but we are literally going to be handling luggage tomorrow. We will be helping the Border Patrol, complete their port, but also we're working with the Coast Guard, and the local port authority has been absolutely pivotal in helping us go through all of this process too.
Has Duluth had to invest in any special infrastructure to make this work?
Yes, so I think almost 2 years ago, the City of Council and the Mayor's office actually approved about $500,000 to build this customs facility, and that was the game changer. Without the customs facility, almost the entire Great Lakes tour would have never happened, because you needed that to go back from Thunder Bay down to Duluth. And so that's a big part of the trip is Canada. And so without that, this whole thing would have been different.
Dan, what do you think the long-term future is for cruising in and out of Duluth?
Yeah, so I was at a cruising conference probably a couple months ago, and I was surprised to see that there are so many cruise lines who are excited for the seawall project to get done. And so I wouldn't be surprised if we're going to go from 10 cruises a year to around 50.
Isn't that something?
Yeah, and these aren't the giant ocean liners. These are the ones you see with the Viking.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a sustainable thing for the economy, and it's also still going to be a nice boost.
Are there a number of companies that would indeed right now even enter the Great Lakes to cruise?
So from the conversation I have with a staff member today, I think they're already looking at 5 in the next year or 2.
You mentioned that they aren't the large ocean-going cruise vessels, but they're still pretty impressive when they come into the harbor.
Yeah, they're 700 feet long.
People come to town just to take a look at it. You've actually been on board. What's it like?
It's way more beautiful than you would guess. And as someone who, it's top of the line. The ship is only 2 years old. And so imagine going into the fanciest hotel you've seen that's been recently built. That's what the whole ship is like. The movie theater is spectacular. The decks, the pool, the hot tub, the sauna, the massage area. Personally, I love that they had a giant puzzle table set up, and then right behind it was a bar.
Have you heard anything from first-time travelers to Duluth?
Yeah, they're surprised by the beauty of the city, because a lot of folks, especially out east, just never even heard of the city. And so here they are from New York, and they're in Duluth, and they just didn't expect this beautiful hillside in the Midwest. They don't expect the lift bridge is always a big awe for folks as they come through.
What's the major market for folks who are touring on the Great Lakes? Is it domestic? Is it overseas?
It's almost primarily here in the United States. It's not a lot of Midwesterners, but it's definitely like East Coast, West Coast, and the South.
What effect has COVID-19 had on cruising, Dan?
Oh, dramatically affected it negatively. And they are coming back, but it's still not at the level that it once was. And I think, that might actually be part of our explosion a little bit too, is that we feel a little safer than some maybe those further excursions that people used to do in the past. And so these smaller excursions are really blowing up in the larger market.
Has the cruise industry created any new jobs locally that you can really pinpoint and draw a direct line?
Especially for these stops and the turnarounds, there are all of these excursions that have to happen. And so now there's new tour guides that we needed. There is folks in town who have to work directly with the ship to get them the supplies they need. There's a wide range of different things like that. But
do you have any idea at all how much a passenger spends while in Duluth?
We're yet to know that for the turnarounds, but for the stop, you're probably looking at
$200
easily a couple
each?
$100. Yeah.
How tough is it to schedule these cruises coming in, because the waterfront in Duluth is a pretty busy place in the summer?
Yes, and so that's part of that relationship between us and the Port Authority, helping arrange that. But we're lucky that on our side, we still have, obviously, our pier is empty quite a bit. So that's pretty easy.
Do you know the folks who are coming in this weekend, where did their cruise originate, and the folks who are getting on here, where are they going?
So that I don't know off the top of my head, but I can tell you that today we had a different cruise ship come through for another one of the stops too. So just shows you that just general level activity, that you have the Ocean Navigator came through today, and then tomorrow will be that big turnaround.
I need a short answer. What kind of expenditures would the cruise company have in Duluth when they're here? Probably fuel.
Oh yeah, you got fuel. It looks like we're actually now looking at doing waste removal at some point, which is a huge cost. Honestly, food is a huge one. So they buy a lot of food for their cruise.
Wow.
You'll have medical supplies. I mean, the average age of a passenger is 70 years old. And so there's a lot of medical support that goes into that cruise ship as well, which has been honestly a boon for other parts of the city. But as you would imagine, like I think the group that's done the best with this has been the depot, where they actually have a whole tour set up, and that's gone over really well.
All right, Dan, we got to call it quits.
I
Thank
could
you
talk
very
easy.
kindly. Appreciate it. Very interesting indeed. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys.
All right.
Good to have you here.
Yeah.
Community Action Duluth hosted a poverty simulation event recently at Myers-Wilkins School in West Duluth. The immersive experience exposes participants to the realities of poverty. PBS North videographer Owen Zagrabelny takes us on a first-person tour of the simulation.
We are at Myers-Wilkins Elementary School in their gymnasium to do a poverty simulation. A poverty simulation is exactly what it sounds like. It's to simulate what our community experiences here in poverty and show our stakeholders and people who are in power what it's like, what it's actually like. Not the stereotypes with it, but what it actually is. The stories here that they will be given to portray are real-life participants from community action programs from all across the country. So we're really excited to show people a part of our world how important it is to our community and what people are currently struggling with.
Hi.
Hi.
Is it just us?
I think so.
Cool.
I know. I'm a dad, maybe. We're not sure. Category: single mother living with boyfriend. Mother Iris, age 19, high school dropout, not currently employed and has never been employed full time. Would like to go back to school and graduate.
So where should we go first?
I think I have to go to work.
Hello. What does the utility company do?
You will pay your gas, your telephone, and your electric.
$190. All right, I'd like to take that out of my cash benefits.
Yeah, so it was an incredibly eye-opening experience. I was in a family of 3 people where dad had disappeared suddenly, mom didn't have a job yet, she had to get social services, and we have to feed the family. There's a rent collector coming to collect the rent check. The role that I was playing was of a 14-year-old. Mom was away. Literally, me and my brother were sitting at home saying, when is she going to get back? We need food. So this whole experience of trying to just survive, just make it through the week was challenging.
And do you know where I could get more transportation passes?
You surely can. You can get it from, you can either go to social services, the church.
Can I buy some transportation passes here? Or are you taking them?
Quick cash.
Okay. Hello, I would like to purchase some more transportation passes.
How much money you have?
So I've got this EPT.
We do not accept EBT.
You do not accept EBT?
No,
okay.
sir. No EBT.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We like to tell people that this isn't a game, it's real life, so it's not meant to be taken lightly. Showing our stakeholders what it's really like being in poverty is supposed to open up their eyes to kind of hopefully change this in the future and also support what the community action agencies do all across the country.
Hello, I'm a single mother with child. I would like to trade a refrigerator for any transportation passes you guys have. We're completely out of transportation passes.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
I would strongly recommend it. I think it gives us a sense of perspective. When we think of poverty, this is not something that anybody chooses. You know, you often hear the rhetoric of, well, you know, poor people, maybe they should get a job. Well, getting a job is not that easy. Getting support for the family. How do you decide whether you should go to work or whether you should go and get your EBT cards? Everything is making trade-offs, and I think that's what we learned.
I want people to go home with a different narrative on what it's like to be in poverty. I want people to understand that it's eliminating barriers and empowering people instead of throwing more punitive on people who are facing poverty and the struggles that come with poverty. Hopefully this will spur people to get involved in the community work that we're doing and other community work that's being done.
So if we can end with that, or I don't know if there's anything else you need to say. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. So thank you for coming.
Local businesses are gearing up to participate in the Great Duluth Race next week. The team-building community scavenger hunt is sponsored by the Duluth Area Chamber of Commerce and its young professionals group, Fuse Duluth. Here to tell us about it is Andrew Wise, the Fuse Duluth Leadership Council Chair-elect. And Andrew, thanks for coming in tonight.
Oh, thank you for having me.
For people who've never heard of it before, what's the Great Duluth Race?
So it's like the Amazing Race, if you've ever watched that show, but basically there are challenges that scatter you across downtown Canal Park and Lincoln Park, where you do everything from jumping into the lake to team building exercises to finding random parts of Duluth. Each thing is categorized with points, and the team with the most points by the end of the day wins.
So this is a scavenger hunt? What's this all about?
Yes, so it's a scavenger hunt. It's a team building program, but there are about 100 different missions that we call them, where you can do these different missions. Each is worth a different point, and then each team tries to get as many points as possible.
So are all of these kind of top secret before they get the list?
Yes, so we do have some partnered companies that we work with that have they actually bought their own mission where they get to be the mission title. But other than that, everything is different every year, and they're all top secret, made by our team.
Tell us about the prize package that'll be awarded.
Yeah, so the prize pack is worth over $3,000. The first item is this traveling trophy. So we have it's made by Pop and Dot, a local
really
company.
Neat.
Yeah, we nothing showcases Duluth better than the lift bridge. And then we have a cover feature of the winning team on the Duluthian, so you get a feature article within it. And then within that, we're giving away some ad time on both PBS North and Midwest Communications. So a lot of different great options to help grow local business.
Now, in addition to the team building aspect of it, is part of the goal with this to get people out into the community and see what there is out there in other parts of the city that maybe they don't necessarily travel to?
Exactly, and luckily we've partnered with other local businesses throughout the community where we do have different focal points and different spotlights of some great businesses around the area, alongside just some really unique things that you have to find or know where they are. So it is a little scavenger-y feel where you're going across the city looking for a certain flag or a certain item.
Trying to uncover the hidden treasures of Duluth?
Exactly.
What are these hidden treasures?
Well, there are too many to count.
Oh, okay.
And I know we only have a few minutes.
Yeah.
Are there a lot of young adults in the community that really get on board with something like this and are interested in participating in Fuse Duluth and the chamber itself and kind of building up the business community?
Yeah, so we've had some great membership rates. Everything's going up, especially on our Fuse side. We've actually decided to grow this race this year. Last year it was 20 teams. This year we're going for 50. And we still have a few spots open, but they're closing up fast. And so we're seeing some really good interaction with young adults and those young professionals who really want to get out in the community. So seeing a lot of people volunteering and getting deeper involved.
I'm really interested in this trophy. So if whoever wins it, they keep it for a year or so, or what happens?
Yeah, so it's kind of like the Stanley Cup. We got a traveling trophy. You get to show it off in your office space, and then we engrave your name on it, so you get to forever be the 2023 winner. But at the end of the year, around June time, we'll take it back and then bring it on to the next winning team.
So PBS has a chance to get this.
Every year.
I've got a beautiful shelf where that would look nice, Julie.
Well, talk to Greg. He's on the team. Is it harder for young professionals these days to connect with others because so many people are working from home now?
You know, it definitely is. And that's, I say, the importance of programs like Fuse Duluth. It really offers that opportunity that's more than just a bar to go and meet new people through mutual connections and mutual interests. So we host probably 10 to 20 different events every year to get people to meet each other, ranging from curling events to scavenger hunts to your everyday just touring a new business. We offer some really cool events.
Active.
And very quickly, we've got about 15 seconds left, but You still have a couple of slots if people want to put a team together,
We
right?
do. It's 5 members per team and $150. So for only $150, you can win $3,000 worth of prizes.
And where do they sign up?
Right on the Duluth Chamber website.
All right. Well, Andrew Wise, thank you so much for coming in. Good luck with the race.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you very much. Well, it's time now for Voices of the Region, when we hear from an area journalist about topics in the news. Our guest this week is Iron Range columnist and author Aaron Brown.
Last month, I reported on the housing crisis, which is a term you often hear associated with big cities. But in northern Minnesota, in the rural parts of the whole state of Minnesota, there's actually just as big a housing crisis. It is difficult to locate housing. It is difficult to locate rentals as well. And the prices for houses, especially for families or that entry-level home that people would want, have really skyrocketed in the past 10 years, and especially in the last 3. It's actually finally on the radar, or has been over this past year, of state political leaders and local leaders. And actually, the Iron Range Resources Board is slated to invest $5 million in a housing program to spur new housing development and upgrade housing, the housing stock, the pre-existing housing stock. One of the problems with a place like the Iron Range is all the houses were built around the same time, between 1910 and 1930, maybe 1935. They're all built on 25-foot lots, and they all have bathrooms upstairs, not downstairs. And that problem is a challenge, especially if you have mobility issues. Older people have a hard time with those kind of houses, and they're rather small by modern standards for what families want. Last week, it was announced that L&M Radiator, a major manufacturer of radiators and assorted radiator-like parts, would be sold to a company in Pittsburgh, Wabtec Corporation, for $230 million. Now, L&M Radiator is maybe not a household name outside of the range, but it's a company that was started by a family and grew into a quite large business with facilities overseas. They've got places, of course, here in America, and they have a location in Perth, Australia. The next generation finds that it's too big an operation to run as a family business, and so they made the decision to sell. Now, the good news is they're still business as usual, making their products, which are these huge, I mean, we talk about radiators in your car. I mean, these are the huge radiators the size of a room that go into the big haul trucks and mining equipment, both here and all over the world. And they're going to still make those, and they're still going to employ all the same people. I think the bigger question is, for a lot of these vendors, I mean, people think about mining employment being important, but associated with the mining industry are these vendors that make these kinds of products and service these kind of products. And as a lot of those have been northern Minnesota based companies, but a lot of them over the last few years, and this is a good example, have been selling to bigger companies. That the sport of mountain biking has been exploding in recent years. More and more people are doing it, and more and more trails are being expanded. And one of the biggest new trails, or newer trails, is this Redhead Trail next to the Minnesota Discovery Center in Chisholm. And it's a trail system built around an old mine pit. The Glen Mine location and the Glen Pit near the former Iron World facility in Chisholm. It's a really unique, interesting trail system because you're actually riding up and down on iron-tinted land that had been put there by miners as overburden piles and as waste piles. And so it's a challenging but fun trail with different options for different skill levels. They're entering now phase 2 of their development. And there was a big announcement this week with more than $2 million from different sources, including about $1.66 million from the legislature, going into expanding this trail system. 12 miles of new trails new rest stations, some pavement in some areas so people with mobility issues can access some of the trails. And it's just more investment in something that's a growing part of northern Minnesota's tourism industry.
Well, we're out of time, but you can keep up with Almanac North by following us on Facebook and Twitter. Keep an eye on the PBS North website for program updates, news about the station, and our upcoming events. And don't forget to download the PBS video app to watch your favorite PBS programs anytime you'd like. And speaking of events, we've got a fun event coming up for PBS North members, Denny.
That's right, we certainly do, Julie. In fact, next Tuesday, June 27th, this coming week, we'll have a public final episode screening of The Great Minnesota Recipe at the Clyde Event Center in Duluth. Now, the doors open at 5:30 p.m. There'll be food, music from the north, and of course the final episode of season 2. It's free to get in, but you must RSVP for the event at pbsnorth.org, where you'll also find additional details.
Wow, it sure sounds like a good time, and you'll also get to see the final episode before anyone else and taste some of the recipes from this season's cooks. So,
okay.
We hope to see you there. For Dennis Anderson and the crew at Almanac North, I'm Julie Zenner. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next time.